Hey there, everybody. Welcome to today's Ask a Career Coach career chat, our Q&A to help you move forward in your job search and help you achieve your career goals. We're going to be giving it a few minutes here for folks to join us on YouTube. So take this time to share out the link to any friends or coworkers or anyone else in the world that you know who's searching for a job right now. We're excited to really dig in today to our topic, which is going to be about navigating the job search as an introvert and navigating networking as an introvert more specifically. And then we will open it up to all of your questions. We've got Karen in the chat. She will be collecting all of the questions that you'll be sending our way over the next hour, sending them over to me, and I'll be answering them one by one. So thank you again for joining us. Got a little bit of a change of scenery right now. I'm in the white void of our satellite office, and I'm excited to catch up with you all and see where you're at with your search. Give a shout in the comments right now of where in the world you are. I'm in Chicago. We just survived the polar vortex and then had a 50-degree weekend where I ran on the lake. So it's been an absolutely crazy turn of weather over here. Today it looks foggier than London town, and it's going to be a really interesting week in Chicago. Where are you joining us from? I'm going to jump into the comments and take a look. All right, we got San Jose. We got warm temperatures in rural Georgia. We got snowy Seattle, raining in Delhi, India. Got some nice waves coming in. We got Abu Dhabi. Yep, I was running on the lake. I'm not sure who you're making that comment for, Karen. Yes, Lake Michigan. I am based in Chicago. Good catch there. Columbus, Ohio, and boy, is it rainy. Sunny in Jax. India, Romania. Boring weather in Romania. I'm sorry to hear, but I guess it's better than getting frozen into a polar vortex. All right, we got Egypt, Morocco, Ghana, Boston, the Taj Mahal. Welcome. All right, India, Pakistan, Nebraska. Thank you all for joining. We got a great turnout coming in today. I'm looking over here because I'm staring at my phone, looking at all your comments. All right, we got some digital marketing questions coming in. We got snow in Colorado, Mexico, San Jose. Again, our topic today is going to be how to network as an introvert, but of course, we can expand this to cover any topics that are on your mind, from building your online presence to interviews and so on. One note as we get into the conversation today, I am a career coach, and I'm primarily, and my background is primarily in marketing, career development, and how to basically build social skills and put yourself out there so people can see you, notice your work, and want to bring you on board. My knowledge in the technical realm, while I am able to go into some high-level areas when it comes to the technical aspects of the job search, like whiteboarding and things like that, I will say I am not a developer, so coding and those super, super technical questions might be just outside my reach. So if we want to focus on the main things that I'm able to help you with, that's great. If some technical questions come up, we'll try and help you answer those in Slack or in the chat with each other. And, just giving you a heads up in case I don't touch on the super, super technical stuff. I appreciate you all joining us today. I'm super excited to hear where you're at with your job search and see how I can help you take things to the next level. We're about 5 minutes in and we've got a good turnout here. So I'm going to start jumping in to our first topic. All right, we got Maine, and here we go. Oh, India. All right, going to jump on in. How do you network if you're an introvert? This is a really interesting question that we want to dive into because we know that a lot of folks who are in our student body and our alumni alumni groups, they struggle with this concept of introversion and extroversion. And there's a typical mentality around networking that if you're not an extrovert, you really shouldn't, or you're not capable of getting out there, meeting people, and building, building a life in the world you're in, the world you want to go in with your career. It's going to be, it's potentially a little bit more tough to get out there and do those things if you're not naturally inclined to go to social events, but it's definitely not impossible. And I want to point out a couple of things as we think about networking and being an introvert heading into our job search. The first thing that you want to keep in mind is that most of the world is introverted. And it's not actually a bad thing. I was reading a stat recently, and it said that 40% of the world is shy, 40% of the world used to be shy, and 20% of the world isn't shy at all, which means the bulk of the world is shy. Most people find it awkward to go interact with large groups of other people. So you are absolutely not alone in your introversion and in your resistance to wanting to network. One of the things early on in my career that I had to get over was my introverted nature. And I am more of an introvert than an extrovert. I'm kind of on the border, but I tend to skew introverted for the most part, especially the older I get. And I used to have a lot of anxiety and even panic attacks before going to events or going on interviews and things like that. But what you find over time, and this is something called exposure therapy for all of you people who love psychology out there, the more you expose yourself to situations like networking events and things like that, the easier they get over time. The less scary, the less of a hill it is to climb over. So what you want to do is realize that it's okay to be shy. The other thing is that the other 40%, so it's 40% shy, 40% used to be shy, and 20% isn't shy at all, is that bulk in the middle used to be shy. So I would say that I used to be very shy, and now I'm in the used to be shy side of things. And so you can develop the skill and move from shy to used to be shy. We might not ever get to the point where we're like, the life of the party, but we can definitely build our skill set. And that's really what it is a skill set around networking. Now, the other thing that I want to point out is a lot of us think about networking as sales. We have to go out there, we have to ask for the job, every single person we talk to. We really have to just go after it. But the truth of the matter is networking is about building long-term relationships around the topics that you're interested in. So it's not about, if you meet someone at an event, the chances that that meeting is going to immediately turn into a job within the next week is very, very slim. But what it can do, if you do that over and over and over again for months and months and months, is build a strong network of lots of people who are doing the things that you like to do and that you want to do, so that when opportunities arise, you can call upon those people. Whenever I'm talking to someone and they say, I want to be a front-end developer, I ask them, how many front-end developers do you know? Usually the answer is none. So what we need to do, because of this concept of you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, is you have to ask yourself, well, how do I meet more people who do what I wish I were doing? That way, when things come up, they will pass them along to you. There's actually a great example of someone I know who does murals. She's an artist, and she networks all the time with different artists. And because she has all these people within her network, when a job comes up that someone else can't do, they go into their mental Rolodex and say, well, who can do this? And then things can be passed along to her. It's how you build a community. It's how you help other people as well later on in your career. If you surround yourself with people who do what you like to do, when you come up with opportunities that you can't take on in the future, you can pass those on to those people. Give back to your network. Give back to your community. And one way you can start thinking about this to make it a little bit less salesy and a little bit more fun is to start thinking about networking, not as quote unquote networking, which is a term that we're not hugely fans of, but think about it more as nerding out. We all love to nerd out about things, new technologies, self-driving cars, the future of education in my case, mental health is something I'm really interested in. How do you nerd out with more people around the things that you love to nerd out about? Make that the center of the topic for you. Introversion is something that can be worked on. Being social and going to events is something that can be worked on. But there's also a whole world of places to nerd out where you don't have to be there in person. You've got Reddit, you've got Quora, you've got Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, Twitter, you've got Instagram, you've got all sorts of online communities that you can join and nerd out in, and then use those as ways to talk to people, get your message out there, and find opportunities around the work that you'd like to do. So create your online presence if you're an introvert, figure out what it is you like to nerd out about, and then go out there and build that networking skill so that you can achieve the career goals that you hope to achieve throughout your life. That's our intro on introversion. If you have more introvert questions, networking questions, please put them in the chat right now, and Karen will be sending them my way so that we can address all of the questions that are on your mind. All right. Jumping on into our first question. All right. Again, I'm learning how to pronounce names, so if I mispronounce your name, I apologize in advance. Anka Jul Gouget, I'm not sure. Sorry. Anka, I have my own business making websites for other business owners. I have to network with other business owners. Should I go to networking events? And if so, what kind? This is a wonderful question. Networking events are incredibly important to go to, but you also want to be very aware of the types of events you're going to. Many events are career focused, so you'll go there and you'll find people who are job seekers. Other events are sales focused, so you'll see people going there who are trying to sell you things. Some are more social focused. You'll see people who are going there to just have a good time and maybe relax, have a few drinks after work. You need to be aware of what types of events you want to go to, and chances are, if you're helping business owners, small business owners, entrepreneurs build their websites, you want to be going to the events that they would be going to. So rather than going to like a WordPress event or a coding event or any of those types of things, go to the event where you're the only web developer in the room. Go to the event for how to do sales for your small business. Everyone there is a small business owner trying to learn how to do sales, and you're the person in the room that can help them build their website to support their sales process. So when you talk to all those people, you're very different. You stand out. You can have interesting conversations that are different than everyone else there. And you can say, hey, you're trying to increase your sales. Did you know that a great website will help improve your sales? I can reduce the number of clicks between the person landing on your page and purchasing your service. I can improve the overall look and feel so that they actually trust you more. I can change the user experience so it's better. All these different things. So if you go to networking events, try and figure out where your customers will be. Maybe you know what industry you're most interested in, so you can go to industry events. Maybe you enjoy helping artists create websites or musicians or something like that. Go to music venues, go to art events and art galleries and talk to them about, hey, I build small business websites. You have, your small business as a musician. Let's get you online. Let's get you started. It depends on your audience. And then you really just want to go there and talk about their needs and what value you can bring to them. If you can help them make more sales, improve their user experience, reduce the number of clicks and therefore the number of people who fall off or give up during the purchasing path. Those are all great things to keep in mind. So I really appreciate this question. It's a really great one. You should go to networking events, but also know that most small business owners are trying to build their online presence as well. So they might have a blog, a Medium article, LinkedIn pages for sure. And you can go and comment on their pages. You can go send them direct messages. You can go help them on Twitter, all the different places where you can connect with them as well. And actually Reddit would be a really great place. You could join some Reddit pages where small business owners and entrepreneurs are talking about how to build their business. And then instead of selling there, because Reddit tends to not like it when you're very salesy, you could just comment with tips. So they're like, oh, I don't know how to build my funnel. Well, here's some web resources for you. So you provide value there, and then they'll seek you out beyond that. All right, our next question is from Varun Rao. Could you go over how to build an elevator pitch for a networking event? Thank you for your question, Varun. This is a great one. The way I like to think about elevator pitches is going back to this idea from Simon Sinek. Simonsinek. He gave a TED Talk years ago that outlined this concept of start with why. Now, the concept of start with why says that most people don't want to interact with a person or a brand because of what they do. They want to interact with a person or a brand because of why they do it. So if you think about this for yourself, why do you do the thing that you do? And this is the way that he phrases it is he has 3 circles that are within each other. The most exterior circle is the what. Everyone knows what they do. I'm a web developer, I'm a marketer, I'm a X, Y, or Z, right? Some people know how they do it. So for, let's say, a web developer, I'm a web developer, and the way that I make great websites is by bringing a human-centered design perspective to the websites that I build. So my differentiator, which is the how, is human-centered design, right? So now you have your what and your how. Human-centered design in order to be a web developer, to create websites. And then very few people actually get to why they do what they do. Why you do what you do is like your general purpose, the thing that you really want to see happen in the world. So maybe for you, you want technology and humanity to work seamlessly together, right? That's the goal of many people who work in AI. That's the goal of many people who work in augmented reality. That's the goal of many people who work in a lot of these wearables and things like that. So your why could be, my goal is to improve the fluidity between people and the technology that they use to enhance their lives. I do that by taking a human-centered design approach to web development. And then at the end of that, you say, what sort of things are you working on, right? So that's your elevator pitch. Someone says, hey, what do you do? Well, I help people create amazing experiences that create fluid interactions between their users and the technology that they sell. I do this through a human-centered design approach to building websites. And then you say, well, what are you up to? So that is one way to create an elevator pitch. Now, there are lots of ways to create an elevator pitch, but what you definitely don't want to do is tell your life story and start with, well, I went to high school here, I went to college here, I just graduated from here, and I need a job. Can you give me a job? That's a surefire way to have someone not know what to do and not know how to help you. So an elevator pitch should just sort of generally set up the type of introduction and conversation that you want to be having, and then move into actual practical things that they're interested in. What brought you to this event? What are you trying to accomplish with your business? What are you most excited about for the future of technology? Things like that make a networking event and a networking conversation much more fun. All right. Our next question is from Jem Chang. You ask, besides events on Meetup, what kind of source can I use to find good networking events? And is social media networking less powerful than networking in person? These are really great questions. I'm going to tackle them one at a time. The first one, what other sources exist than meetup.com? I would say meetup.com is your best starting point. But beyond meetup.com, if you really can't find anything there, try to search eventbrite.com, because that's going to be another place where you can find meetups. And then look at local websites that have events in your area. Professional organizations tend to have their own events. Volunteer organizations tend to have their own events. So you might be able to find stuff on their websites. But in our day and age of everything sort of aggregating in one place, all of these companies and all of these organizations that are trying to put on events know that people aren't going to find their website. So they typically try to leverage Eventbrite and meetup.com as their two sources to get the word out. So I would start with those two. And if you really can't find anything, just look up websites to find meetups. And I'm sure there's some other ones that are not as top of mind for me. But I typically, being in Chicago, I can go pretty deep into those websites and find something to do almost every night of the week in Chicago. I know that's not everywhere in the world, but here's the big thing. If you go on those sites and you really want to be doing something, going to an event, and you don't see it, you don't find anyone talking about that topic, what you want to do is take that as an opportunity to be the person who owns that topic. It's like finding the McDonald's URL before McDonald's knew what URLs were. If no one else in your area is talking about this thing and hosting events, you get to become the expert. So I worked with someone who wanted to go to a sports tech meetup, where it was like people who are interested in sports, people who are interested in technology. Didn't exist. They created it themselves. They started talking to CEOs and inviting them to speak, and it led to a lot of big opportunities to work at companies. So I would highly recommend, if you don't see it, build it. Now on to your second part of the question. Is social media networking less powerful than networking in person? This is sort of it depends kind of a question. I wouldn't say it is less powerful, because I've seen people get jobs on Twitter. I've seen people get opportunities through Instagram, and I've seen someone even learn how to network or even tap into a network through their Clash of Clans Slack group, which I never would have thought was a thing. Whereas in person, it takes up a lot of time, a lot of energy. You might go to an event and not meet anyone useful. I think they both have their pros and cons. The goal is to become part of the conversation. Networking isn't just about meeting a person and asking for a job. It's about providing value to the overall conversation that's happening around this topic. So if you want to be part of the WordPress developer world, there are lots of WordPress developers. They're all doing stuff. There's lots of customers that need WordPress developers, and they're all looking for resources. And if you're one of the voices that exists in that space, you're going to have a much easier time getting clients, getting opportunities, finding companies to work for. So I wouldn't say either is more or less powerful than the other. And it also depends on your skill set. Some people are absolutely amazing in person. What I do think is that an in-person meeting leaves a much stronger impression than an email back and forth, because you have facial expressions, you meet each other, you shake each other's hand. So my goal is, if I go to an in-person event, I try to get a couple of names and then meet those people later for a one-on-one coffee. Because when you're in a group and there's a lot of activity, people tend to forget who you are. So take an in-person meetup and turn it into an individual conversation in person. Then take the individual conversations and turn them into online connections where you're connected on LinkedIn. Then you can be posting on LinkedIn and sharing things and commenting on each other's stuff. And now you have an online relationship with that person, which then could, be refreshed in person every once in a while. And then eventually when something comes up and you're able to collaborate on a project together or refer each other for a job, that can happen online, in person, etc. So I like to think of it more as like a badminton game between online and offline, rather than one being good and the other not being as strong. So I would say figure out what you're best at first, and then try and leverage the two against each other. I hope that kind of gives you enough to go on. But of course, ask more questions in the comments if you'd like to go deeper. Thank you so much for your question. All right, Gregory, networking question. I'd like to create a meetup group and organize events around deep learning and self-driving cars. How do I find people interested to talk and/or organize events with me? Awesome question, Gregory. This is going to be an area where we just kind of use the resources that exist. There are conversations happening everywhere on the internet around these topics. So if you're putting on an event around these two topics, go create your meetup, go create your Eventbrite, go do whatever it is that you're doing. And then interact on Reddit, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and anywhere else that you can find people who are already having this conversation. You can tap into companies and have them be speakers at your events and have them share it out with their networks. And you can tap into volunteer organizations and professional organizations as well. I'll give you an example. A while back, maybe 2 years ago, I had this little blog idea called Career Dogs. And my concept with Career Dogs was career advice with a dog spin. It was just a goofy idea. I felt like creating a website. Once I created the website and I wrote a couple posts, I wanted to put on an event because I just thought that would be super fun. I wanted to play with some dogs. I wanted to talk to some people about their careers. So I created an event called Career Dog Therapy. And Career Dog Therapy was just a way for people to come together, basically complain about their jobs, and then play with a bunch of dogs that will make them feel happy about things again. It was a very goofy idea, right? But I was talking to someone at the American Marketing Association, and they thought it was super fun, just a one-on-one coffee that I was having with this person. I brought up the idea, and I said, hey, if you ever want to collaborate, I think it'd be a really fun event. We ended up collaborating. We got WeWork involved. We put on the event, and they shared it out to all of their network at the American Marketing Association. We had a great turnout, probably 20, 30 people, not sure. I think we had about 4 or 5 dogs show up. It was a really fun event. And I was able to help people with their careers. We were all able to pet dogs. Fun all around. And I did that by tapping into their network. So try and tap into networks that already exist rather than trying to build everything from scratch. Provide value. Say, hey, we have this great event. Would anyone like to speak? Offer opportunities to people who are trying to build their platforms. Maybe you can go on YouTube, find the top 20 people in your area who talk about these topics and say, hey, would you like to talk about this at my event? YouTubers are trying to get seen. They're trying to get more followers. So play into that. Play into people's personal interest and flatter them, And so you can really attract a lot of eyeballs by just partnering with the people that are already way ahead of you at pulling in attention. And then how do you get them to organize and work with you? I think you just reach out and you just are honest, like, hey, I'm really excited about putting on this event. I'm looking for venues. I'm looking for people. If you just put it up on maybe Craigslist even, I'm looking to organize an event. Is anyone interested? Probably better on Reddit, but you'll be able to find people out there for sure. Also, go look up these terms in hashtags on Twitter, on Instagram, and in the LinkedIn content search. You can look up these hashtags and find people who are already talking about these things. All right. Praduit, I'm so sorry if I'm pronouncing all your names wrong. You ask a question, which is, I have a fear of people judging me, so I have a fear of people judging me, and I'm really insecure when I approach people for networking. How can I get over that? It's funny because as you're asking me this question, I have an extreme fear about mispronouncing people's names. And the only way through it is to do it. You're just going to mess up and have to keep going at it. And this is something I think I mentioned a little earlier in the conversation. It's called exposure therapy. Try and find the easiest, least scary form of networking to start with. Maybe it's tweeting someone, maybe it's emailing someone, maybe it's commenting on people's posts, which is even less of a scary thing than emailing or tweeting someone. Start building the skill, the practice of interacting with other people. And this fear of being judged is totally, common and totally understandable. I have it as well, quite a bit. One of the reasons I don't make more content than I'm currently making is because of that fear. I need things like this to really instigate and push me to create more content. I know people are expecting it, so now I got to do it, right? So you just have to sort of, number one, accept where you're at with things. Don't try and pretend that you're something more than you are. You are someone, and you're admitting it here. You have this fear of being judged. So let's start small. Let's just start with the practice. Let's not worry about the outcomes. Let's not worry about any of the other things. Let's just start with the action and the practice. How do I, number one, just have a conversation about these topics? Maybe start with friends that you have, right? Family members, things like that. Branch out into commenting on posts and just incrementally and slowly build your way up. Hopefully that will be helpful. That's kind of how I started, was just small incremental improvements over time. And then at a certain point, I just dedicated myself to jumping all in and allowing myself to fail. I think one of the ways that I've gotten over a lot of insecurities is by having a really bad experience, and then just knowing that that was the worst experience. Everything will get better from this point on. I actually, at one point, went on an interview purposely without preparing, just to see what would happen when I'm completely unprepared. And now what that's helped me do is be able to take on situations where I'm less prepared than I'd like to be, because I know I've done it before and I've built the skill of how to wing it and how to maybe improv my way through it. that conversation could have gone worse, but it just ended up being a thing where it's like, wow, this is a lot of effort and a conversation that didn't go anywhere and a job that I didn't get. And if that's the worst situation, everything else is uphill from here. I think I also joined improv classes, and there's a number of other things like that, including public speaking, things like Toastmasters. I'm not sure where in the world you are right now, but there are lots of different ways to build your, let's say, resilience or anti-fragility around these topics, because at the end of the day, being able to hold a conversation with a stranger is going to be super important for the development of your career, whether it's dealing with clients, new employees, new coworkers, and so on. You want to be able to build at least the level of skill you need to get what you need to accomplish in your life. Again, you don't need to become, Gary Vaynerchuk or one of these like online entrepreneurs who's the most social person on earth. You just need to get to the point that's good for you and gets you the results that you need in your career. So I hope that that's helpful. And when it comes to the idea of other people judging you, that's going to be something that is an internal practice of, confidence building and understanding that at the end of the day, most people are worried about you judging them more than they are judging you. And so when you're looking at everyone and you're like, they're spending all their time, assessing me and judging me, the truth is everyone else in that room is in their own head worried about how everyone else in that room is thinking about them. We're all too self-absorbed to really worry about you or anyone else. So when you can sort of take a step back and realize everyone is in their own head for the most part, and most people aren't actually thinking about me or care about what I'm doing. Like put yourself in a networking event. You're standing in the corner of the room, you're looking around, you're scared. I do this all the time. I just stand there and don't talk to anyone. And I think everyone in the room is looking at me, right? No, they're not. They're looking at the food they have in their hand, the drink they have in their other hand, the handshake they're trying to do, the conversation they're trying to have. They're worried that their shirt might be untucked or their hair might be messed up. They're in their own head. They are not looking at you. And when you go up and talk to someone, they're worried about the words coming out of their mouth. They're not worried about you. So I hope that helps just kind of take some of the pressure off. And then everything beyond that is repetition and practice and exposure and just putting yourself out there in the ways that you are both expanding your comfort zone and not like, putting yourself in harm's way or anything like that, or in truly dire situations, which is pretty hard when it comes to networking. So I hope that you can incrementally improve over time. All right, our next question. Ihab Hamdi. I'm very shy talking with people, but today I decided to talk to people at an event, and it was a nice conversation, but I feel I committed many mistakes. For example, I just started the conversation about my project idea without introducing myself. I'm looking for tips when first engaging in a conversation and how to end it gracefully. This is a wonderful question. Thank you for sharing. When it comes to making mistakes, and this is something that probably I learned most in improv and learning how to give talks and presentations and things like that. The worst thing you can do, or probably the toughest mindset you could have going into a conversation is thinking that there is a correct way to do this, right? So if we think we have to do this and this and this, and we have to do it in this order, and we must touch on these topics, what's going to end up happening is we're going to spend so much time in our own head, we're going to forget there's another person who's part of this conversation. A good example of this is whenever you meet someone at an event and you shake their hand, and then they just go off talking about all of their work and their projects and their other things, and they never talk or ask you any questions. The truth of the matter is, if you worry less about yourself and you take that focus and put it on the other person, asking them questions, asking them what they're interested in, what they're excited about, what they're struggling with, what they hope to learn from this event, where they think their career is going. If you just ask them questions and say nothing about yourself the whole time you're talking, that person is going to have loved this conversation with you. Because the truth is, people don't really care about anyone else except the things that they're working on. It might be a little harsh, but that is, when you allow someone space to talk about themselves and their interests, they feel good. And so if ever you're at a loss, make it more about them than about you. And then when it does come back to you, you say you made a mistake that you just started the conversation talking about your project idea without first introducing yourself. Now, I know that feels like you made a mistake, but that person is probably interested in your project to some degree. Maybe it relates to something they're working on. So just in the future, you're already catching these things. So you've done it, you've identified areas where you want to refine it, let's say. And now next time you do it, just give it a shot again. If you do this again the wrong way again, then the next time just give it a shot again. You are going to meet hundreds of thousands of people throughout your career. So you have hundreds of thousands of opportunities to mess up and to still improve. I bet you that the conversation wasn't so bad that they were like upset and walked out of the room, right? They weren't mad at you. you just feel like you weren't complete in your conversation, right? So here's a way you can rectify it after the fact. Okay, you leave that conversation, you forgot to mention a couple of things you wanted to mention, reach out to them via email, because you have their card, I hope. Reach out to them via email and say, hey, I had a great conversation with you. I'd love to continue it and learn more about your work over coffee. Would you be open to having a coffee chat in a couple of weeks? Now, when you go into that coffee chat, you've got more time, more space, and more of a relaxed situation where you can talk about yourself a little bit more and talk about the things you're working on a little bit more. And then how do you end things gracefully? Boy, that's a tough one. It's really hard to get out of a conversation sometimes. Some good ways to do it are to say, like, I'm gonna go get a refill. It's been wonderful meeting you. Maybe we can catch up later over coffee. Do you have what's the best way to keep in touch? That way you're like, wrapping up the conversation. You can say, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. I'm really looking forward to chatting with a number of people at this event. So I hope you have a great time and I'll see you around the rest of the event. There's a lot of different things that you can do to bow out of a conversation. But again, you're doing it already. I want to make that very clear that you've made the decision to go talk to people. So do not be too critical of yourself as you're learning this skill. Allow yourself the space to make a mistake and then let your subconscious do the work from there. The next time you talk to someone, your subconscious will kick in and be like, remember to introduce yourself first, and you'll catch yourself next time. So just keep it up. I think the fact that you're thinking about it is already doing what you need to be doing. All right, Alexandra, where does one start? I'm an introvert and just the thought of speaking to others is terrifying. Let's start with people you know for in-person networking. Who have you worked with in the past? Who did you go to school with? And who are your friends? Ask if you can start by getting coffee, by meeting up with them for coffee, even like people that you've worked with that you don't know super well, just to have some more familiarity. So let's just start there for the in-person networking. And then for online networking, start by commenting on people's posts on LinkedIn, Twitter, blogs, etc. Pick the platform you're most interested in and start engaging in the conversation there. Just in the comments. You don't have to create anything new. You just have to say, awesome, post. I really agree with this. Here's another resource that might help, etc., etc. Just try and get some reps chatting with people online. Maybe move that into email conversations or chats via direct message, things like that, and slowly build from there. So if the thought of speaking to others is truly terrifying, try and build the skill with people you know, and then also do the lowest hanging fruit online. And then as you continue to build your comfort level, take it to the next step up. I hope that's helpful. If you have more questions around that, I know it's fairly general, but please share. And thank you so much for your question. Chris has a great question here. His question is, how do you get over shyness at an interview? Oh boy. I'm not sure that you'll ever get over your shyness totally, right? But you can respond to your shyness in a positive way. Most of us respond by closing up and running away. That's at least my history with it. But what you can do is accept your shyness, accept your nerves, and then continue forward in spite of them. So the problem with an interview and what makes interviews so hard is that you have so few of them when you're searching for a job. It's very tough to get to the interview portion of a job interview, of a job prospect. There's also the phone interview, the in-person interview, technical interviews. There's lots of different types of interviews. So how do you get over your shyness? I think the best way to do it is to do informational interviews, lots and lots of one-on-one coffees that are low stakes, because the real interview is so high stakes, our nerves are through the roof. However, if you're just getting coffee with a random stranger who works in the industry, who, if you mess up that conversation, they'll forget who you are in a week anyway, it's not a big deal. You can meet with hundreds of people and you can have hundreds of bad conversations because there's thousands more to meet with. So I think the best way to get good at a real interview is to have a lot of small half-hour conversations with people who work in the industry over coffee, over tea, and just get used to talking about these topics. And what will end up happening is in those conversations, you'll learn interesting stories that you tell, you'll learn interesting facts from the people you talk to, and you can take all those things into the real interview that you go on. So that would be the best way to do it, is just Google the term informational interview, go to themuse.com, go to all these different websites, and get good at having coffee meetings, because if you're really good at coffee meetings, you'll be much, much better in a real interview. All right, Phyllis has a question. Do you have suggestions for networking remotely? I'll be looking for a remote data analyst position, and I live 40 plus miles away from my potential employers and like-minded data analysts, meetup type groups. This is a great question, Phyllis. When it comes to working remotely, your online presence is going to be incredibly important. Having a personal brand, having video of yourself if you can, but audio, video, images, you want to seem like a real person when someone Googles you. If you're trying to get if you're trying to get a remote gig, because the problem with getting a remote gig is that they won't necessarily see you in person before you start working. And so the barrier that you're going to have to get over is this barrier of trust. The reason people do in-person interviews is because when you're in the room, looking at them, shaking their hand, and making eye contact, there is a lot of trust that is built. And then when you sit down and have a conversation, you get to see their movements, you get to see how they interact with the office, the other employees, the people that brought them in, and so on. There's a lot of data that comes from our body language and comes from our interactions and our tonality that is lost in a medium like texting or email or things like that. So the more you can do to make yourself a real human on the internet, meaning videos, audio, a well-oiled website that has your information clearly shown with your projects and things like that, the more you can do to humanize yourself online, the better it'll be when you're going after those remote roles. And then what you need to do is reach out to people with interesting reasons of reaching out. Say, at the very basic, would you be up for a Skype call? I'm curious to learn more about your work. But at the highest level, what you can do is create amazing excuses to reach out to people. If you have a blog, a podcast, or a YouTube channel, you can reach out to people to interview them for your blog, your podcast, or your YouTube channel. Now you have positive excuses to reach out that provide value to these strangers who would otherwise be a little bit tough to get a hold of. I'll tell you, it's much easier to say, hey, would you do a 2-hour podcast with me or a 1-hour podcast with me than it is to say, would you just jump on Skype for an hour? If you do Skype calls that are just regular Skype calls and they're not a podcast or something, I would say, 15 minutes of their time, 30 minutes max, and make it very clear that, you're super grateful. And one thing someone did, which I really appreciated, I met with someone to do like a little chat coffee. This is years ago. And they sent me, I think like a $5 Starbucks code via email as a thank you afterward. So like there's a lot, because they couldn't meet in person, we met on Skype. They were like, here's that coffee that I owed you. I don't know, it was really cool. I thought that was a great way to do it. All right, we have a great question from Anka about keyword research tools. I have one, let me see if I forget the name of it. I'm trying to look at my bookmarks right now. Gosh, what was it called? There's one called Ask the People, I think, which is a really great resource for finding topics that relate to your core topic, like if you're a blogger or something like that. Let me see if I can find anything else here. Here we go. Wordstream.com/keywords is a free keyword tool that might be super helpful for you. It's been a few years since I've used this, but it might be something worth looking into. And then again, use Google to your benefit. Just Google keyword tools, and we'll be able to find really relevant stuff for your industry. All right, our next question is from Scruffy. What is the top of the pyramid when it comes to networking? Whoa, things moved around, sorry. What is the top of the pyramid when it comes to networking if sending emails and commenting on posts is the bottom? The top of the network the top of the pyramid when it comes to networking is people reaching out to you. If you are creating content and providing value at scale online, you don't have to network as much anymore. You still have to network, but not as much as before, because people will see your stuff and come to you. I'm sure a lot of you who are on this call or who have engaged with the content that we've been creating here have noticed that it's much easier to reach out to me because you've seen my face and you've interacted with the content we've created here than if I didn't do it, because you wouldn't know who I was. You wouldn't know my name. You wouldn't know who I am. I've seen a stark difference between the time prior to making these videos last September and now in the number of people that reach out to me rather than me just posting and hoping someone will see it. So I think the top of the pyramid is becoming a creator and contributing to the conversation at scale, at such a volume, and it's not a huge volume. Really, anything that you're posting will get out to people. That people are coming to you to talk about these things. A step below that would be, having just strong connections within the industry. If you're regularly going to events and talking to the people and part of professional organizations and things of that sort, if you're speaking, if you're doing things like that, if you're just helping host events for large organizations. For a long, long time, I was just involved in the events committee of the American Marketing Association, helping bring in younger people into the organization. That was a great way to partner with a big name organization and build my network at the same time, build a skill set, build a network. So yeah, the lowest hanging fruit is to just comment on things and engage with other people who are posting things. And then the highest level thing is to be the one who's posting the things and having other people comment on you. Hope that's helpful. And this will be our last question before we wrap up today. This is from Grace Beauty. When networking, I always feel that I'm not meeting the expectation of being smart enough. What can I do? I love this question. I'm so glad we're ending on it today, because the idea of being smart enough doesn't actually exist. It's like saying, I don't want to post it until it's perfect. Well, there is no such thing as perfect. There's no final state of being that is perfect or a final state of being that is smart. Everyone who is intelligent knows what they don't know, which means there's no end to it. Every time you learn something new, 10 more doors open up of things that you need to learn. So even with the questions here today, right? You're asking me questions. I don't know the answers to all these questions. I'm giving the best answers I've got, and then I got to go do more research. I got to go figure out more stuff because these are new things that are coming my way, right? You will never be quote unquote smart enough. Nothing will ever be perfect. Nothing will ever be complete fully. You can always adjust. You can always learn something new. You could always be quote unquote smarter. What's more important than being smart is being curious. If you are curious and you ask questions, networking becomes easy because you don't have to prove anything. You don't have to answer anything. You just have to go into rooms, go up to people, and ask them about their opinions. And then you seem smart by affiliation. You seem smart because you got them talking about topics that they feel smart about. That's how you come across as smart when networking. And that's the secret. The secret between being scared of networking and being super excited to network, I guess, is to have lots and lots of questions that you don't know the answers to, so that when you walk into a room, you can talk to anyone, because all you have to do is ask them a question and let them fill in the space. So for all of you introverts out there who are worried about having to fill the silence with your words, just learn how to ask better questions. All right, that's going to be our last question for today. Thank you so much for joining us for our career Q&A, our Ask a Career Coach. I want to give a shout that we have an event coming up for a tweet chat. This is going to be on Twitter, so not on YouTube, but mark it in your calendars. Creating a career you love. And guess what day we're going to be doing this on? Oh yeah, Valentine's Day. We're going to be talking about creating a career you love on 2/14 at 1 p.m. PST. The hashtag is going to be hashtag Udacity chat. Again, that's on 2/14, February 14th at 1 p.m. PST time. Hit us up on Twitter, and then also look at the chat that's going on right now. Karen's posting a link to join us next week for another Ask a Career Coach session here on YouTube, where we'll be answering all of your questions and diving deep into figuring out how to crush it in your job search and find that dream job. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. If you have more questions, feel free to follow us, hit us up on Slack, hit me up on LinkedIn, and we look forward to helping you continue to crush it in your job search, and we will see you again soon. Thank you so much for joining us.